Welcome to the Doc Style Reps podcast, where we talk with medical device sales reps about how they got started, how to support docs, and tales from the OR. If you're interested in asking a question on the show, please email info@docstyle.com. LifeSpine is focused on providing innovative solutions to address spinal pathology. Our comprehensive product portfolio centers around fusion and minimally invasive surgeries and is driven by patient and surgeon needs. We are dedicated to improving the quality of life for patients by increasing procedural efficacy and efficiency through innovative designs, uncompromising quality standards, and the most technologically advanced manufacturing platforms. For more information about distributing our products and sales training programs, please email Shomit at omsurgicalsolutions.com. That's Shomit, SHOMIT, at omsurgicalsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Doc Style Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Darling, and we're here today with Dr. Maziyar Kalani, a fantastic and reputable neurosurgeon in Phoenix, Arizona. Dr. Kalani, it's great to have you on the show. We're excited to learn about what makes a great device rep according to your experiences. I understand you've had a hand in training reps. That sounds
Hi,
like...
good afternoon. Glad to be a part of the program.
All right. So training reps, that sounds like quite a handful. Let's start out with you and how you got into the industry. Why did you get into medical to begin with?
So my background, I think, is just to go back one step. I have no formal role in training reps, but I do participate in general with helping improve the process and quality of representation in the OR, because that naturally benefits the surgeon. In my specific role, the more I'm involved with helping to train those that are helping on the representation, the more of a benefit that the surgeon derives from the experience. But to kind of go back to your set of questions, I was always very encouraged to pursue a career where I could help folks make a useful contribution to society. So that's kind of how the initial foray into medicine went. And did a lot of volunteering as a student at college, and then went to medical school and went into neurosurgery. It helped my brother is a neurosurgeon as well. So having his experience and his mentorship really did help pave the way for my pursuit of neurosurgery. And eventually had a lot of good mentorship, good friends, folks that I wanted to emulate as I advanced in my career. And that's how I went into spine surgery.
Okay. Now, I know the obvious answer is I went to medical school and I did my internship, but what was some of the process of getting you into the medical industry above and beyond that?
In terms of training, or
in terms of just sort of step by step, what was the process like for you?
Most doctors spend 4 years in residency, while neurosurgeons spend 7 years in residency. During this time is when many doctors and neurosurgeons are introduced to reps. Oftentimes, connections are made based on common ground, such as similar age. Residents are a great resource to sales reps in providing the attendees, who are the instructors and professors, with their preferences in the OR. With that being said, it's important to build strong relationships with your residents when gathering intel on your attending customers.
So becoming a specialty trained surgeon typically involves, to your point, going through medical school. Even within medical school nowadays, there's a lot of emphasis on expanding boundaries, on innovation, on developing new ways to do old things and new ways to diagnose old problems. So there's a big research emphasis even within medical school. So that tends to help differentiate medical students, not only in terms of competitiveness, but also in terms of interest. So I pursued a subspecialization in medical school on the molecular basis of medicine. That helped get me more interested in going into neurosurgery as a field. A large percentage of the conditions treated by a neurosurgeon has a molecular basis for treatment, whether it's vascular diseases, pain syndromes, oncology, both in the brain and in the spine, et cetera. But once somebody gets into residency, there's an internship process, which is a general learning experience, followed by a rigorous few years of general training within the discipline itself of surgery, managing patients before surgery, working them up, actually learning to do the operations, and then helping to manage them after surgery. Within that, every field has a wide array of subspecialties, areas that are niche and carved out that deal with a specific set of problems, which spine is one of them. And medicine, much like everywhere else in society, is being heavily driven by technological innovation and technological advancement. And spine surgery is maybe at the forefront of that in neurosurgery, at least, with the development of different technology to stabilize the spine, to maintain range of motion in the spine. So that's kind of how things have kind of been shaped in the last few years, at least in my experience.
So your initial experience, you're in residency, you're in it, fully in it. What was that initial experience like for you?
It's like drinking out of a fire hydrant. It's a lot of information, a lot of steep learning curves, not only in terms of knowledge, technical experience, but also learning how to work in a large system that is naturally a hospital, wanting to span patients to the outpatient, inpatient, and post-care worlds. There's a lot of information coming very quickly, and so learning to adapt to that is the experience. So the best way to describe it is truly drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Remember that as a medical device representative, it's important to not consult on clinical diagnoses in regards to patients, but instead to know the indications for the products and how they are used to treat various pathologies.
And during that experience, what did you learn? Maybe even about yourself. I
mean, nobody is the same person coming out of residency as they were going into it. So there's a lot of learning about your own work ethic, developing a work ethic that you may have had, but taking it to the next level, understanding what it takes to be a good physician, not just a good scientist or a good technician. Being a good physician is a culmination of a lot of different individual skill sets wrapped into one. So there's a lot of learning in that sense, and a lot of synthesis in terms of what it takes to be not only a good technician, a good diagnostician, but also the soft aspects of being a good physician.
How did the experiences that you had in your residency help shape your view of your job now as a neurosurgeon?
Well, it's funny you say that. There's always this one talk that I remember, that I recall back to during medical school, which where one of the vascular surgeons in my medical school said that you pick what you do based on the type of people you want to be around. And that's absolutely true. I think neurosurgery is a fascinating, broad field with a lot of very exciting technology, diseases to treat, a lot of invasive, and depending on what you're doing, a lot of cases where outcomes can be dramatically improved by intervening to help a patient. So my personal take on this was I had a lot of really great mentors in residency who were spine surgeons who I wanted to emulate and be like. I saw them, do very good work, very good ethical, well-meaning work where they were able to work up folks very effectively, diagnose them appropriately, and give them the best treatment for their specific condition. So seeing over and over, despite a high volume of work, patients getting good results by people who were people that I wanted to like really help motivate me and kind of steer me towards that field.
Fantastic. So let's take a look at kind of where your current role. You spent some time working at a very prestigious, world-renowned hospital and clinic. What was that experience like for you?
So I've had the benefit of working in a lot of very well-to-do institutions. I did medical school and residency at Stanford. I did fellowship in Cleveland Clinic, and so the experience, including where I am now, is just fantastic. Getting the opportunity to have folks come to be seen kind of as a last resort almost, where their conditions are so complicated, where folks in their local communities have kind of thrown up their arms and said, this is a very challenging case that is probably not best managed locally, but maybe sent to a kind of more of a tertiary or quaternary center to have a multidisciplinary approach to their problem. So it's definitely an honor. It's a privilege, definitely, to be helping folks who are so complex, who are really in need of help, and to be that potential last stop for them.
Based on the data put out in 2012 by the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, there are approximately 3,689 practicing board-certified neurosurgeons for over 5,700 hospitals in the U.S., serving a population of more than 311 million people.
Now, as a neurosurgeon, what is your day-to-day like?
So the day-to-day experience is variable, yet kind of all encompassing of what a neurosurgeon would do. So a neurosurgeon sees patients in the clinic, sees patients in the ward, sees consults, takes call, and operates. So almost every day has some elements of that. So on any given day, we come in the morning, we'll round down our inpatients, see patients in clinic, or deal with outpatient clinic issues for patients that we have either seen or to be seeing. If we're on call, we tend to see consults or deal with emergencies. If we're not on call, but a patient of ours that has been seen by us in the past who may be in the emergency department or is calling with an urgent issue, we help address. And of course, we operate, and that's a very big part of what we do. At the end of the day, what separates a neurosurgeon from a neurologist, for example, or other surgeons is that we operate, and we operate on the components of the nervous system.
And what would you say is the most challenging part of being a neurosurgeon?
It's interesting because all those things I described have their own unique challenges, and whether it's being on call a lot and having a lot of emergencies to deal with, or dealing with patients who have a very challenging issue that has a challenging outpatient or inpatient course. Inherent to any surgery is a risk of complications. So dealing with potential complications, for example, they all have their own unique challenges. And I think it would be atypical to say that one aspect of it is the hardest. Every aspect of what we do is challenging, but I also think that's what makes it so rewarding.
And on the other side, what's the best part about what you do?
The best part of what we do is just helping people. I mean, there's a lot of technical aspects to the work that we do that's fun. Ultimately, if you're putting yourself and, more importantly, the patient through an operation, and you really want to see an outcome. And there's a lot of things you can do, but if you don't see the result of what's being done to be favorable, then it's not quite as rewarding. So, we do small operations, we do big operations. Some of the smallest operations we do that have really good outcomes give a lot of satisfaction, sometimes more so than the really big operations that don't have necessarily as good of an outcome potentially.
Now let's turn our focus a little bit. And I know we talked a little bit about what you do in terms of helping with training of reps. So what exactly is your role when it comes to that?
It is important to know that it's not the surgeon's job to train the representative. That being said, many surgeons do enjoy educating their sales rep, and it is generally a good idea to ask the staff or even the surgeon directly if they have a preference.
So I think all surgeons have a role in terms of educating the person representing the devices that they're inserting. There's no reason to help other than the fact that everybody in the room, in an operating room, is trained to have maximal understanding. That the ultimate yield of that is that the patient does better. If the person representing understands the case, understands why things are getting done, they can anticipate the potential next steps of the operation. They can speed things along. They can have the right things ready at the right time. Should anything happen as a complication, they would have alternatives that they would be willing to offer and have available, and potentially be in a situation where the stress on them is a little bit less, and therefore it allows them to think outside the box and potentially help come up with solutions. So I have no direct role in educating individuals. I don't teach classes. I don't teach courses. But my view of the rep in the room is that they're part of the care team. Their job is to help facilitate things and understand the case, and therefore help with the patient's outcome eventually.
Now, do you think that device companies do a good job of training their reps?
I mean, it's debatable. I mean, we've all seen reps that are really excellent, and we've also seen reps that are not. And but there's one thing that's consistent, is that the inconsistency is the most consistent aspect of representative education. There are great reps from great companies, bad reps from great companies, great reps from unknown companies, bad reps from unknown companies. This is very inconsistent, and which leads me to believe that there is an element of either inconsistency in terms of education or inconsistency in terms of who's hired with what skills. I feel like there's a lot of folks who are very friendly, very nice, and they're maybe good salespeople, but maybe not necessarily good spine specialists.
Dr. Kalani brings up a great point. Regardless of the company that you work for, if you don't master your craft and continue to educate yourself, you won't get better at being a medical device representative.
Now, while we're focusing on the reps, what would you say that what do they do in terms of your world?
My understanding, and I think probably the most 10,000-foot view of what a rep's job is. The rep's job is have the supplies, have the options, have salvages, and to the most that they can contribute, understand what it takes to be a value add to a case. Now, so I think some folks come in and they think that their value add is the fact that they brought material. And depending on the surgeon they work with, that may be the case. I think where the superlative representation comes out is folks who are able to walk that fine line of being a good sales individual, but also being somebody who contributes to the case, understands why a case is being done, understands the potential pitfalls of any operation, and understands alternatives or solutions or different ways of thinking about how to approach a case or how to approach something not going perfectly well with a case.
And what do you think device companies could do better in terms of training their reps, if anything?
Well, that's the thing. I think most companies sell the stuff, teach the stuff, sell the stuff. So it's very much product driven as opposed to an understanding of how a rep can be part of the team. Right now, I think a rep just shows up, they have the material. The good ones understand the pathology, understand the thought process, and in doing so, bring a little bit more to the table.
Now, in terms of device colleges and resources that train reps outside of the industry players and facilities, what do you think of any of them?
I don't know a whole lot about them. I've heard that some are out there and they exist. I've never interacted with any of their graduates. I'm not familiar with any of their curricula, so I'm not quite sure what the my experience is with that. I would say not very much. I do understand they exist, though.
Okay. Let's turn now to rep interactions. And the first question I have here is, what's the key to being a good doctor?
To be a good doctor, I think you need to be a personable individual. You need to have a good fund of knowledge, be able to translate that fund of knowledge and the keenness to try to solve the patient's problem, or be a partner in solving the patient's problem. And then within that, working in the aspects of, the soft skills of good human interaction, caring, good conversation, compassion, empathy, and then putting all that together. So fund of knowledge plus a curiosity to help solve the problem, and having an element of empathy and human touch that puts everything together to ultimately get to the end of figuring things out.
So in terms of being a good surgeon, what are the additional things that you need for that?
Technical aspect. A technical aspect of willingness to be humbled regularly, but not be discouraged. But still maintaining a desire to continue to want to help improve the patient's outcomes. I think in this day and age, there's an ethical element to being a good surgeon. At the end of the day, we take an oath to do no harm, and making sure that we put the best interest of the patient above anything else. Offering patients a good, minimally invasive or not as aggressive of an operation to get them the same outcome without view to maybe secondary gain, be it the patient or even the surgeon themselves.
Now, turning back to the device reps, what's it like interacting with them during surgery?
Like I said, very variable. So, the inconsistency is the most consistent thing about interacting with reps. There are individuals who stand in the corner and are very quiet, don't engage, maybe not as interested, or feel a little shy or intimidated to approach the surgical team about why things are being done, why things are being approached the way they're being approached, why the specific device, why the specific implant, the material that goes into the implant, biologic versus non-biologic, choice of allograft. And you got folks who are maybe a little too aggressive sometimes, who are really just in your face, and instead of letting you actually do the case, they're constantly asking questions. And then there's folks who walk that fine line as well, but you can still tell that they're maybe a little tentative and don't understand things well enough. They're good folks in terms of interaction. They ask some good questions, but maybe they don't necessarily use that interaction and synthesize it appropriately for the next time that a case comes up.
If you are a medical representative going into the operating room, make sure you understand the environment that you're going into. Be sure to consult the surgical technologist or circulating nurse and ask about the temperament of the surgeon, whether you can ask questions intraoperatively, and if they would like their rep to be vocal. Once in the operating room, be very observant but not in the way. Pay attention to where they are in their procedure and take notes if need be.
Now, in terms of rep relationships, how do you manage those?
They're always challenging because, especially in this day and age where there's a lot of industry involvement. A rep relationship is just that. It's a business relationship. It's a relationship between a physician and a sales representative to the degree that it's to help facilitate care. So as much as the interactions are hopefully collegial, it should be limited to what needs to be done to get the best outcome for a patient. So different companies have different strengths. Fixating on one company to solve all your problems, although for the more commoditized material like pedicle screws, for example, or inner bodies could be, found in one place or another. But I think every manufacturer has a value add, and finding the right solution for the patient, whether to enhance fusion or to get a better outcome. Folks shouldn't be fixated on trying to get all their solutions out of one company, and so broadening that relationship to companies where a better solution may exist for a specific problem is really important.
Now, what's an example, if you have one, where managing a rep relationship has been a bit challenging?
Well, I think one of the aspects that is challenging is some reps, might be reciprocal, but a rep relationship is a business relationship. It's not a friendship, and so I think lots of folks confuse that a good relationship is a friendship, and therefore maybe boundaries can get crossed very easily. So that is somewhat of a challenge sometimes. And I think sometimes that folks think that either the surgeon thinks that they can demand a little bit more from a rep just because they use them regularly, or vice versa. Those are always a challenge, and they come up regularly. And I think just repetitive conversations around the fact that this is a business relationship needs to be maintained in order to make sure that those boundaries don't get blurred and the folks don't end up on the wrong side of those lines.
It is important to remember that in any clinical setting, it is paramount to stay professional. There is no question that many device representatives build friendships outside the clinical setting. However, when you are providing a service and when patients are involved, it is important not to take advantage of that casual relationship.
Now, is there a challenging experience you've had with a rep in the OR?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I have a general rule where I basically make reps come in the day before on elective cases and review images with me, review the plans with me, to help streamline things and help things move along effectively. I think by doing that, we we head off any potential issues that may come up in the OR itself.
And that answered my next question. So what would you say reps can do to build a relationship with doctors?
I think being available, maybe not all surgeons want to be sitting down with a rep to discuss cases the day before, but being available, making yourself available without coming on too strong to help review cases. It gives off the impression that they're interested. They're not just interested in selling stuff, but they're also interested in what is being done and helping to address the pathology. So that's probably one of the most important things. But like I said, maintaining the boundaries, maintaining a level of understanding that a relationship is not shouldn't be blurred between a good, civil, cordial, polite interaction shouldn't be necessarily a gateway to get really close and try to interact beyond that, which is a business relationship. I think a lot of surgeons, especially in the modern Sunshine Act era, don't want to be perceived as too cozy with the industry. So, and I think part of the problem with that is that translates into some surgeons not being necessarily very cordial or maybe even polite sometimes with some of the reps. And what the rep can do to help stave off any of that is to maintain those good boundaries, make themselves available, but maintain good boundaries in terms of getting too close and too chummy with their surgeons.
The Physician Payments Sunshine Act is a 2010 United States healthcare law to increase transparency of financial relationships between healthcare providers and pharmaceutical manufacturers.
Now, has a rep ever helped you in your job? Do you have an example of when that might have happened?
Well, routinely, I think reps give good ideas of what's available. I'll give you a good example. I was unaware that lateral revision systems are available to help retrieve inner bodies. That's not something that is readily apparent to me. But getting a conversation going in advance of surgery can be really helpful to understanding that exists. So, I would call that helping with my job, because my job is to give the patient a good outcome. The rep's job is to sell material. The closer that those two jobs come to alignment, and realizing that the common denominator here is a good outcome for the patient, I think the better of a job a rep will do, and the better they will be perceived in terms of their value add in the OR.
Okay. And have you ever helped a rep? Do you have an example of when that might have happened?
With their job?
Yeah.
Once in a while, we get a green rep who doesn't necessarily know all the things that are available, and so in that sense, not infrequently, sure.
Okay. Now, what is the most annoying things that reps do?
I think I've gotten to that. I think just blurring the relationship line is probably the most annoying thing they do. Show up at your door regularly when they're not called upon. Reaching out to you to hang out socially when, it's not kind of how the relationship should be working. Trying to again go beyond what is otherwise a business relationship.
Okay. And what is the definition of a good rep in your opinion? I know we've covered this a little bit, but just like a brief thumbnail sketch of what you would describe as a good rep.
You know who I think would make it the best rep? Another surgeon. So somebody who understands the pathology, understands why we're doing what we're doing, understands what options are available, both in terms of approach, in terms of material, in terms of biologics that would be helping, and who is engaged just enough before surgery, just enough during surgery. And I think where a lot of folks kind of fall short is not that many people ask how a patient that they were involved in their care is doing after surgery. So they're all happy that the ACDF or the ALIF went well, but they never ask, how's that patient doing?
Okay. Now, what advice would you give to people trying to break into the device sales industry?
I think a combination of what we've talked about is important. Learn the disease. Yes, the product you sell is important, but learn what you're actually treating. Learn what other options are available. I think some of the strongest representation that I've seen is able to look at a pathology and say, hey, we don't have something that could help, but I know somebody else does.
Okay.
And that's where I think being like a surgeon yourself as a rep is so key, because you're trying to help the patient. You're not just trying to sell stuff. That's the difference.
A successful medical device representative should be a person that offers up solutions to their customers even when the proposed solution is not your product. This allows you to be a true consultant that provides the best possible outcome for patients. To do this, you need to have knowledge of both your products and your competitors' products.
Okay. Now let's get to our speed round. All the heavy lifting is done. These are little lighter, shorter questions, if you will. Let's start with, what career would you have chosen if not neurosurgeon?
No, that's a very good question. I'm not actually sure. I probably would do something that involves tough problems to solve. So something like engineering, mathematics, physics, something along those lines.
What is who is your favorite influencer, speaker, or book that you might be reading for the medical industry?
So within medicine,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the thought that's going around value-based healthcare is, I think, really important. It's definitely going to change how we treat patients surgically. There's a lot of different ways to treat a disease, especially as we move towards these value-based models. Things are going to be really shifting. And it's really important stuff for the country as a whole. I mean, if we don't help figure out how to get the best care at an affordable growth rate today, the cost of that care, we're looking at losing a lot of dollars that we could invest towards infrastructure, towards education, on care, especially with an aging population, growing population. That's just going to eat a bigger chunk of our future investment in the country.
Do you have a favorite medical facility that you have supported?
Having trained at Stanford, I'm a little partial to that institution. So I would probably have to say that off the top of my head.
What's some advice you'd give someone that's trying to get into medicine specifically?
As a physician, I would say look at kind of where healthcare is going. There's a lot of different ways to get into medicine. One aspect of being a physician is, we help. We're intensely involved in the lives of individuals. But folks, for example, who do public health, they can affect the lives of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, or even millions of people. So there's different aspects to approaching medicine. Everybody has an ultimate goal of helping, of being involved in improving individuals to, population level of people. So there's a lot of good work to do in medicine. It's an ever-growing field, whether it's from the technological aspect or from finding new ways to deliver the care that's out there for folks. So look at it broadly, because there's a lot of different facets to medicine itself.
All right. And finally, what is the most rewarding experience you've had in the OR?
I think on a routine basis, I think one of the most satisfying experiences that I have is, especially when I do either spinal cord compression cases, tumors, discs, trauma, or spinal deformity, and you're seeing the spine realign to a better overall posture. You see it right in front of you. You see it on the images. It's very rewarding. You get the outcome fairly immediately.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Doc Style Podcast, Dr. Maziyar Kalani, neurosurgeon. Fantastic to speak with you, and thank you for your time.
Likewise. Thank you. Hope this helps.
LifeSpine is focused on providing innovative solutions to address spinal pathology. Our comprehensive product portfolio centers around fusion and minimally invasive surgeries and is driven by patient and surgeon needs. We are dedicated to improving the quality of life for patients by increasing procedural efficacy and efficiency through innovative designs, uncompromising quality standards, and the most technologically advanced manufacturing platforms. For more information about distributing our products and sales training programs, please email Shomit at omsurgicalsolutions.com. That's Shomit, SHOMIT, at omsurgicalsolutions.com. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Doc Style Reps podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes each month featuring how to get started in medical sales and tales from the OR. If you have questions or topic suggestions for the show, please email info@docstyle.com. That's info@docstyle.com. Let us know what you think.